humans, we don't like to do hard things.
Oh,
so we avoid.
I hate it. Yeah.
I think a lot of times life is a choice between what do you want and what do you want more. Mm-hmm. So what do you want? Do you want this friendship to be mended, or do you want the comfort of not having to have that uncomfortable conversation?
Either one is okay.
But it's what do you want more?
Welcome to I Love You So Much. My name is Reed Fish, and I'm missing my good friend Tyler Labine again. He is out there filming. We have Amber Robinson here, who a psychotherapist. Oh, I'm excited about this. But first, Amber, we got to confess. And Tyler's not going to be here for this show, he does have a confession for us. Great. So Tyler has remotely sent in a confession. I appreciate this, Tyler.
Here's my confession remotely. I have been, for a long time now, 2 years now, I've been obsessing over this one friend of mine. And I won't say who she is, but she was at one point a very, very good friend of mine. Was being the operative word here. We were very close, very, very close for a long time. And then something happened through my alcoholism, which was really unfortunate. I don't want to get into details of that, but I sort of wrecked the friendship. I mean, I did, through some words of mine. A few years back, I made amends to this person through the program, and it went really well, and we reconnected. We made some plans, and it didn't happen, and then we kind of drifted apart again, and then I reached out again, like 2 years ago. We had a back and forth, and it just abruptly ended, and she never ever responded to me again. And I reached out multiple times saying like, hey, did something happen? Did I say something? And then at a certain point, you just have to leave it, right? Like, you can't keep poking at a thing. You have to accept, okay, that person, something happened. They don't want to talk anymore. And I've been obsessing over it for 2 years about what did I say? What did I say? What did I say? And I went back and watched these video messages, and like there was one where I made a kind of like my jokes were a little edgy, but this is an edgy person as well with a very cynical sense of humor. But I've been just like flogging myself for it for 2 years now. And I've watched those videos over and over again. And my confession is that there's like a sick sense of fulfillment, like self-fulfillment that I get out of it. Like, you are a piece of shit. I knew it, you know? It doesn't matter that you did all this work and you've been in the program and made amends. Like, you're just a piece of shit, and she knows it. When I say obsessing, I don't mean every day, but it pops into my mind often, at least once a week. And that's 2 years, and I want to let it go. It feels like I'm not properly handling this, and I feel like I should have grieved the loss of this friendship a while ago. I need to let it go, I think. Anyway, that's my confession for this week. Sorry it was so long.
And Tyler, my confession is that I'm annoyed that you're filming yourself while you're driving. What should Tyler do there, Amber?
Well, I think there's a few things happening. One thing is, in all relationships, whether that's friendships, romantic relationships, therapist, client, there's rupture and repair.
Okay.
There are ruptures, I should say. And sometimes that allows for repair and sometimes it doesn't. So in the case that he's talking about here, his friend, seems like isn't looking for repair.
Right.
And that creates a lot of shame, and it creates a lot of guilt and a lot of rejection. And nobody likes to feel those feelings, obviously.
Well, or Tyler does a little bit, right? That's what he was kind of copying to that. It's like it's feeding something in him, right?
Right. But I would be curious, I wish he was here so I could ask him some more questions, but I would be curious if it is this feeling of I need to not feel that way. Like, I need this person who I had a friendship with for so long to hold me at a higher standard so that they will, if they say they forgive me, then I'm actually not that bad. So, that might be a little bit of what's going on here. But, ultimately in this issue, I think he needs to try to get more to a place of acceptance that that friendship is a part of his past, and it's not a part of his present, and maybe it's going to be a part of his future, but it
doesn't sound like it. Yeah.
Right now it doesn't seem like it's happening.
Okay, I'm going to go next. Yeah. So I because I was kind of looking at, what your work involves a lot. And I know it's a lot of the childhood trauma and I know adult relationships. And so I'm a dad and I have a 10-year-old daughter. And I guess my confession is I do worry, like, what is her childhood trauma going to be? And do we all have it? Or, I think there's a lot of questions that come with this confession, but I do think about it in terms of like, I'm also getting a divorce, and like, how does that, if in my own childhood, that was a traumatic event when my parents split up, and I somehow want to give her a trauma-free childhood, and I just don't know if I am, or I don't know how. And I my confession is I worry about it maybe a little too much.
Yeah. So what I tell my parents, my clients who are parents, is that just exactly what you just said, worrying about that and trying to be proactive is a big bulk of the work. And it is, understanding that you're a human. This is your first time existing, right?
Right.
This is your first time being...
I think so, yes.
It's your first time being a dad. And so you will make some mistakes. But again, going back to the rupture and repair, if you're getting a divorce and you worry about how that's going to affect your daughter, talking to her openly about it and acknowledging her feelings and accepting her feelings, even when they don't make you feel good.
Right.
Right. And that's really hard. I think it's really hard, especially for a lot of parents, because there's so much pressure on being a parent. And exactly what you just said, like, we often have our own childhood stuff and we try our hardest to not repeat that pattern.
So I'm just doing new things, I think, because I'm really the experience that I think she's had of her parents splitting up was very different than mine. And I think there's a conscious effort on my part to, and my ex too. I mean, it's very, her parents didn't split up, but I know it's very important for her to not make this a big traumatic event. And so I think we worked really hard on being civil through the whole thing and still doing things as a family. I mean, just kind of doing the kind of things you would hope some people would do as they're, transitioning from their marriage. And so I'm kind of proud of the way we've handled it. But then at the same time, I'm probably, I don't know, like doing something else that my parents were really good at that now I'm failing at. I'm assuming anyway. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, we're never going to be perfect ever, really. But you only know what you know when you know it.
Right.
So I think most people know that having a very high conflict separation, triangulating the child and trying to get them on your side is highly toxic. And, I'm not a psychic, but it will cause childhood trauma without saying it will. And that, but you don't necessarily know how you being 5 minutes late to something if it's going to impact your daughter or not, because it's more simple. It's unknown, where it might send a message that you don't care. Or it might not. All kids are different, and we all view things through our own lens. So it's quite challenging. But leading by example is huge. So talking about your feelings, showing that you're human and that you might be messing something up and you're open to feedback. Also, working on yourself, reading the books, going to therapy, talking to maybe your other divorced dad friends, which I think is kind of the premise
we have a whole
of this
podcast
podcast.
Yeah. I just try to talk to her about, anything that's going on and just have open, honest conversations and just continue communicating about whatever and give her the space to have therapy, give her the space to, just to mess up and not be judgmental. And I'm trying to be a good parent. And
you're doing a good job.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I think my ex is too. So, hopefully she will have a trauma-free childhood relatively. So fingers crossed. We've got 8 more years.
Yeah.
So, okay. You have a confession?
I do.
Oh, wonderful.
So my confession is that, throughout all my clinical work or, the various things that I do in my career, I run a group practice. I've seen something like 10,000 hours of clients. I did the math recently when I was leading a workshop. I still have imposter syndrome.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you fought through it to come on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of what I do is we call it parts work. So
parts work?
Parts, like different parts of you. So if you think of, have you ever seen the movie Inside Out?
I saw Inside Out 2.
Okay, well, so kind of the same idea where Riley is made up of all these different emotions and they all come together to make her a human. Or for those who haven't seen the movie, if you ever think of like a Friday night and part of you really wants to go out, but part of you wants to cancel on your friends and just Netflix and maybe drink a glass of wine. Those are just various parts of you. So I have a part of me that has imposter syndrome and that says, who are you to go on this podcast and talk about this when you actually have this issue?
Right.
Or who are you to help someone with their relationship when you have a failed relationship? But then I have another part of me that's like, no, you've helped this person. you're smart, you're, various other parts of me. So,
Well, how do you help us with failed relationships if you have a failed one? Or no, because you've walked the walk, I guess. You know what's entailed and all that.
Yeah, and it is more about knowing the content of it. I remember being in grad school, and when we're in grad school, I was on the older end, and I was 28 at the time.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times people go straight from undergrad to grad school. They're graduating to become a therapist, and they're 25.
Right.
And so we get posed with the question of how are you going to help me in my marriage when you don't know anything about marriage?
Well, thank you, because Gabe is, I have not asked him his age, my therapist, Gabe, but he's young. I know it. He always is, people in my generation, I'm like, okay, but I know I don't look it, but I'm 52. And, but Gabe, I think he's in his 20s. And so there's a little, and I've had my friends be like, what are you doing with the therapist? How is he going to help you? And I'm like, I don't know, actually.
How long have you been with him?
Like a year and a half.
Okay. Do you feel like he's helping you?
I don't know. I still have problems.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can't take away everything, right? But the analogy that was given to me by a professor in grad school was if someone, let's just say, had cancer, would you require your oncologist to have had cancer, or would you have required them to go to school to learn everything about cancer, to do the continuing education workshops and things like that? I would, feel good about that as long as they're continuing to educate themselves and are updated on the latest science. So that, to answer your question, kind of a long-winded way, that's how we help someone on their relationships. And also, even if I have what you would call a very successful, in my career, let's say, I have clients that tell me I help them all the time and things like that. But if I'm working with another therapist, which I like to do and I do sometimes, I can't just give them my blueprint, because they're their own human and they're going to experience it in their own way.
But to go back to the analogy, though, a part of me wants my oncologist to have had cancer at one point so they could put themselves in my shoes, right? And so I think that's the thing. But of course, if you're a therapist, you're not going to have gone through, even if you're at the end of your career, you're not going to have gone through every problem that your clients bring to you, right? Because there's a lot of problems out there.
And, in my practice specifically, I really value, in life, I value authenticity. And so I specialize in working with creatives and entrepreneurs because I'm both of those.
Yes. Yeah.
So I understand what that life is like. I have a group practice. We have 4 therapists here. So I understand what it's like to have other people depend on you. I understand what it's like to be the face of maybe your company, or to various...
You're speaking my language right now. Yes.
Maybe we need to fire Gabe.
Yes.
No, just kidding. I understand that in that sense, but to your point, I haven't been through everything, but I'm also a human. And at the end of the day, therapy is about 2 humans connecting. And a lot of times, we don't have the answers for things, especially when we are experiencing things in real time. Recently, we had the fires in Southern California. I've never been through that before. I'm experiencing it with my clients, and unfortunately, I had clients who lost their homes in the fires, and I don't know what to say to that. But I can hold space, and I can provide empathy, and I can, just be there.
So when you're working with creatives and entrepreneurs, I guess I can get into that a little bit. What specifically I think are the issues that you see a lot of people in my sphere encounter?
Depression and anxiety that come from your worth being tied to your work. So
I've had that.
So you wrote a movie, and then was it successful? Was it picked up? Or maybe did someone say they were going to pick it up and didn't?
All those things.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's the thing is, and it kind of gets to something I had in my mind to talk about is there are moments where I can sit and realize and think oh, I've been super successful at this. I've had a screenplay that was produced with it wasn't a big budget, but it was over $1 million. And it was it was a real movie with recognizable actors and the whole thing. And it went to film festivals and it got a small theatrical release, and it didn't do great. It didn't get great reviews. It didn't, so this thing that puts me on a track to be more successful than 99.9% of anyone who's ever sat down to write a screenplay, in my mind, is a total failure.
Before it didn't do so well. And before it went to the film festivals, did you see it being a total failure?
No, I think there was like a week where I was like, oh yeah, I did. You know, I think right after we shot it, I remember getting back to LA and being like, oh right, yeah, man, I did it, you know, and it felt pretty good. And then, you know, if anyone has ever made a movie, you start watching the first cut and you're like, oh, this is a total disaster. And then from then on, it was like, oh God, is this not good? Is this, you know, so, and then even once it was done, you're like, I don't know, is it good? And, you know, and so then you let other people's perception of it color your own. But at the same time, I've gotten plenty of like, you know, emails from people and people who enjoyed the movie and like or are fans of it. So it was, you know, it's a mixed bag, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
And that's really challenging. But when you are creative, whatever your art is, if you're a painter, if you're a movie producer, if you're a writer, your first piece of art is not going to be as good as your last piece of art. And that's part of the process. So I say get it out there. It's kind of like life, right? Like you try something in your life and your relationships. And if it worked, the next day you do it again. And if it didn't work, then the next day you pivot.
Well, and that's just being an entrepreneur as well. I mean,
exactly.
That's like, if you have your own business, I mean, that's just the way it. Yeah, it's just always, you're just making it up day by day. I
exactly.
mean, it's hard to have a plan when you're in those spaces, right? I mean,
absolutely.
you can plan all you want, but
yeah, it should have like kind of a structure, right? Just of goals. I think goal setting is very important.
Okay.
It's also very important to be able to pivot. And when you are too attached to an outcome, then that leads to a lot of more issues that we work on in therapy, like depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of burnout. Various things like that. A lot of struggling relationships because so much time and energy is spent on attaching to an outcome that maybe isn't within your control.
Yeah. I mean, because if you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, however big of the business, even if it's just you or whatever, it's just like, it's, you know, someone said, you know, you become an entrepreneur because you want to spend 90 hours working a week instead of 40.
Right.
Right. Or whatever. Because you can't work 40 in an office. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's all consuming, you know, at all times. And so, yeah, it's hard if you're trying to have a relationship with someone who's in that.
And that comes with the importance of having a strong community, people who support you, who see your vision, and also people who can call you out if maybe
right.
you are so attached to your business that you're neglecting your family or your health or other things that are priorities for you.
Right. That resonates with me too. And kind of something that we've been, I think, touching on a little more on the show is having community, of kind of having, of being adults and like, and having people we can rely on. And in fact, this show is kind of about Tyler and I becoming better friends and you know, being there to support each other, because there is, right, this loneliness epidemic, right? So what are we faced with just in kind of general terms as societally, and you know, how can we, you know, form better relationships and form more community with people?
A lot of people are not engaging with other humans, and it's creating this massive loneliness epidemic.
Well, right. And I even have some stats with that. You know, it's like loneliness, so it increases your risk of premature death by up to 29% and a 50% increase rate in dementia in older adults. You know, 29% more heart disease, 32% increased rate of strokes. I mean, geez, I'm surprised I haven't keeled over at this point. A lot of really bad health outcomes can go from, you know, this mental health issue of not feeling connected to people.
Yeah, I read recently that loneliness is more dangerous for your health than smoking. And that to me was very astonishing. But I also understand it from the therapeutic aspect, because humans are wired to connect.
Right.
And we need love, whether that's, you know, whatever that is, whether that's love with your children, with your friends, with a romantic partner, love for, you know, within your workplace. But we need to connect with other humans in order to feel fulfilled. And the dementia stat that you gave, I thought was quite interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but it makes so much sense because, you know, I've had dementia in my family, and it's something that I think about a lot because it's like, I don't want to be in that position.
Yeah,
and it's all about training your brain and exercising your brain and you know, driving a different route home, learning another language are some of the things that they recommend. But imagine just sitting in your home and maybe you're scrolling on socials or you're watching TV and you have full control over what's happening, and you're not having a conversation like this where we're using critical thinking and...
Well, you are, don't.
And then we also, unfortunately, people might come for me for this, but with the prevalent use of AI, it totally zaps critical thinking. And
Right.
then we're using AI for relationships.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's not the
good.
healthiest. Yeah.
Yeah. You actually wrote this article on creating connection, right?
Yes.
So what are some things we can do to kind of create connections with people? Because I assuming if you're listening to a lot of podcasts, you also might be lonely. So and that's not a dig on our audience. We love you, but I think, I know like sometimes if I'm not feeling like I want to interact with people, I'll dive in and I'm interacting with my podcast friends, and it's like, that's great. And I do think it actually helps, but I think we need the real world stuff too.
Well, going on that, I think when you go out into the real world, having authentic connections with individuals where you're learning or contributing. So maybe that's talking about the podcast. Like, hey, I was listening. There's this cool new podcast. Two divorced.
I happen to be the host of.
Yeah, two divorced dads trying to get better, and talking about that. Like, what do you think of it? Or hey, let's listen to this episode. Things like that. But getting yourself out there is key. You're not going to cure your loneliness by sitting in your room, scrolling on socials. It might feel like you're connecting for a moment, but that's very fleeting. And as soon as you turn that screen off, it goes away. We need person-to-person interaction. So being authentic and just being yourself, even if you think you're weird, even if you think you have imposter syndrome, like I came in here, I told you about my imposter syndrome, and that created a moment of connection for us where you can talk to me about my imposter syndrome or ask me questions about that,
I can say, I've
or
felt
criticize
that too.
or whatever it is, but it creates an authentic moment. So getting yourself out there, join a fitness class is actually a really good way, I find, to create connections, because there is, when you're doing, let's say you're doing aerobics or Pilates or boxing or a golf lesson, whatever it is, when you're doing movement with someone in sync, that releases oxytocin, which is the love hormone, which creates connection.
Yeah, well, I think going through things with people create, like, you at the end of it, you're like, hey, we did this thing together. It's like, it really, like, you do feel connected. And lead with vulnerability. Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's part of the authenticity too, is maybe I'm not feeling great about myself today, or maybe I'm going through a divorce, or maybe I'm trying to prevent my daughter from having childhood trauma. That's created an authentic connection.
Right.
And right now we're doing it with a purpose, or filming a podcast, right?
Yeah.
But out in the real world, I mean, this is the real world, of course, but if you are just trying to form a relationship with somebody, don't, lead with this armor, because that armor can often be seen as impenetrable. And what we don't realize is that other person also has armor too.
Right.
We're all just humans at the end of the day.
Right. And I think I've mentioned this in here before, but I do think I have a particular skill of getting to know people pretty quickly and forming connections pretty quickly. And I think I've really thought about that a lot. And I think that the reason I'm able to do that is I do get pretty vulnerable pretty quickly with people. And maybe sometimes it can come off as, self-deprecating or, whatever. But I do think when you say something, and even if it's a little bit negative about yourself, or just like, oh, I wish I want to be better at this or that, people can identify with that, because they probably feel that way too, right? Because most people have this kind of negative self-talk loop that goes on in their mind about certain things about themselves.
Absolutely.
So, and even just expressing that, people are, oh, you do? Oh God, I do too. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, this guy, he gets me. So it does feel like I have a lot of relationships with people who are, I consider them to be good friends, but I don't see them all the time, or I don't even interact with them that much. But when we do have interactions, they're meaningful.
Yeah. And that's super important. Another important tip is to keep it going, right? So
Oh, I'm bad at that. See, that's okay.
So you want to keep the momentum going. So if you say, hey, let's do lunch next week, and you feel lonely every other day, it's important to follow up on that lunch.
Oh, that's the hard part for me. Yeah. Yeah. You actually have to send the text to do the lunch.
Exactly. So that's another part of it.
Because I think for me, I do have this problem of like, I'll talk a big game and I'll say, and I authentically in that moment, oh yes, I do want to have lunch with you next week. But then I get home and I forget, or this thing's on this, and I don't follow up. What's a way I can actually force myself to follow up?
Prioritizing it. And this is, part of my directness with my clients is a lot of times I'll ask them, like, what's most important to you?
Okay.
Are you really plagued by this feeling of loss of connection or this feeling of loneliness? Is that really important to you to fix? And if they say yes, then I'll say, okay, then it's important to set this priority.
Right.
This podcast is important to you. You make time to come down here. You film it. So if you want to create deeper, longer lasting connections with friends, that has to be, initially you might have to treat it like a job.
Right.
Not that it's an unwelcomed labor, but just that it's important, and maybe following up on those plans, those lunch plans isn't as natural. So set it in your phone, set yourself a reminder, maybe even something like when you think of your friends, because we think about our friends, hey, I hope John's doing well. In that moment, send a text, hey, just thinking of you. It doesn't have to be this big thing, like telling him everything that's going on. But if you get a text like that, it feels good.
Right.
And that creates a moment of connection.
I appreciate those.
Yeah,
And
I got
a call. Someone did that to me a week ago and called me and just said, "Oh, I'm just checking on you and see how you're doing." Have I got back to that person? I haven't. So I want to, though. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where patience comes in too, because I'm sure you're busy. You have a lot of things going on.
So busy. I could have never found time to call that person back. No.
But when you do, it's just having grace and sorry, it's just common. That's happened to me too. Right. That happens to everybody, where you get a text, you're driving or you're doing something and you're like, I'll call that person back. But then something happens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We're all busy. We're all busy, right?
We all have our stuff.
But it is about prioritizing. And I think that, if you are feeling lonely, you just got to prioritize meeting people and just get over your shit, right? Because it's like, I think you can probably say that, well, no one likes me. I don't have a good personality. I don't, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. But it's like, no, there's someone out there for you. Someone wants to be friends with you.
Yeah, and those things, no one wants to be friends with me, those unique characteristics that we all have is what make people want to be friends with us. Because nobody wants a carbon copy of everyone else. Like we are all human. We have internal experiences. And when your internal and your external match, then you attract the right people.
I don't know. What is my internal? That's, I have trouble, I think, articulating exactly what my internal is. I mean, my external is I got the red shoes. I'm good. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you hate red, then people are complimenting you on your shoes all day long. And in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I hate these shoes. Right. And a lot of times it's a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah, of course.
But then that creates this internal conflict that leads to a myriad of other issues.
Do you feel like your interior and exterior are aligned? Do you feel lonely? I guess it's a two-part question.
I don't feel lonely, but I used to. And that came with a lot of, therapists, we often have like the shoemaker shoe syndrome, where it's like we have a lot of stuff. I was riddled with childhood trauma. And so I was like, let me figure this out. And it came into this career, right? So I thought for a very long time that I was so different from everyone else. Nobody understands me. I can't connect with people. Nobody cares about me. And, that was childhood trauma and a bunch of other stuff that I spent many years in therapy figuring out. And so I don't feel lonely anymore because I feel, maybe here and there, but not extended periods, because I feel like I like my own company. And I feel confident that when I've built, I have amazing supportive community, and I feel like if I, let's say I'm idling on a certain day, that I can call a friend or call someone and chat with them or make plans to go to lunch or something like that. But that's not to say that, I don't have my own things.
Right. Well, what are some of your things?
Yeah, the imposter syndrome's one. Right. A lot of times, another thing that is a struggle for me is sometimes I overload myself. When I was just running my own one-woman show in therapy, it was a different experience. But then I decided to expand the practice and bring on other clinicians. And now if I fail, then they're relying on the business to be successful too. And so sometimes that looks like overloading myself and not doing the meditation or not doing the journaling or all the things I tell my clients to do. And
easy to tell people to do stuff, harder to do it yourself. I mean,
but when you fall off the wagon, you just have to get back on and not beat yourself up about, I didn't work out for 5 days. It's like, okay, so don't make it 6.
Do you think everyone needs therapy?
That's a good question. I don't.
Thank you.
I think everyone can benefit from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Need and benefit are two different things.
Yeah, everyone can benefit from it. I think you need therapy is often weaponized.
Right.
And so I don't like to use that phrase, but it can be beneficial for everyone.
And probably most therapists have done therapy.
I would hope.
Yeah. Right. Well, do you think that is a mark of a good therapist, that they have actually done therapy?
That's actually one of the questions that I ask when I'm interviewing therapists to bring onto the practice is, have you been in therapy? But one of my mentors, I remember one time her saying she had never been in therapy, and I was shocked because she was such an amazing therapist. Mm-hmm. I personally think it should be a requirement.
I've actually been, another little confession is I've been thinking recently a little bit about, well, am I getting enough out of it? I don't know that I am, but I don't know that I'm not. And I feel like I'm in a way better place than I was when I started therapy a year and a half ago. My life is very different. And I don't know that if that's because of therapy. There's a lot of stuff, but it feels like, maybe I don't need it. And I've kind of had this thinking for a month or so, like, I don't know, do I really, really need this? But then I wonder, do I just need to do it differently? Do I need to get deeper? Because I think I have a problem doing that.
It could be various different things. Maybe, is this the first therapist you've had?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm old. I'm old now. So no, I've had a few
over
the years, but the first one in 10 years or 12 years or something like that. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have a certain therapist that can help you through a season of your life. When I was in grad school, I had a therapist that I was in a dark space at that time. I was dealing with a lot of depression, and I had a therapist that really, really helped me with that. And then in 2019, I was going through a different experience, and I felt like I needed kind of to go deeper. I needed a different type of therapy, and I got a different therapist that helped me tremendously. And they're both great therapists, but they practiced different modalities.
Okay.
So let's say you have trauma, right? As most of us do.
Right. Okay.
So we have traditional talk therapy, which is you probably do, right?
Yes.
With your therapist. And then we have parts work. So figuring out maybe there's something that you did that you don't like, that you have guilt or shame about. And you're wondering, like, why the hell did I do this? Like, that was such bad form.
Right.
So that's a part of you that maybe is a protector part that was afraid of vulnerability. Maybe you lashed out at someone. Maybe you were really mean to somebody because you felt criticized. So there's that a lot of times it's an inner child. So that inner young Reed inside you that feels so much fear around being shamed.
Okay.
So that critic part, or that mean part, let's say, comes out and is like, no, you're not going to hurt little Reed. I'm going to protect you.
Right.
And then yourself, which is all your parts, then feels bad about maybe whatever you did. We also have EMDR therapy, which,
we had an EMDR therapist on here. Gina.
Okay.
Yeah, Tyler's done a lot of it. So
yeah, I do EMDR as well. And that's maybe if you have some trauma that's stored that traditional talk therapy isn't necessarily working for, that EMDR can help, or maybe it's just the human to human connection. Not that there's anything wrong with Gabe, but maybe just a different person sees things through their lens and is going to ask you different questions. Or maybe it's just you challenging yourself to go deeper.
Yeah, because I don't want to throw it on Gabe. I love Gabe. But I did think of another thing that I wanted to ask you that's a little tangential to this. But when you're talking about childhood trauma, I think the word trauma is out there a lot. Right. And a lot of people are talking about, I have PTSD for this. I have I had this trauma, I had that trauma. Is the word being overused? And how do you think of the word trauma and what trauma actually is? Right. Because I think some people talk about traumatic events and I'm like, oh boy, yeah, that sounds traumatic. And then other people are like, oh my God, I spilled my coffee.
Right. I'm having a little bit of inner conflict on that question because as a therapist, we can't qualify trauma. We shouldn't necessarily, because what might be traumatizing to you is not necessarily traumatizing to me, vice versa. But I also have this pet peeve of people overusing like therapy speak. So, someone said to me once, like, oh, I don't like driving because I have so much PTSD from being in traffic for so long. And I'm like, that's not what PTSD is. And it's it's kind of offensive to individuals that are genuinely struggling with PTSD.
Right.
But on the other side of that coin is, let's say you have a childhood memory of grabbing your dad's hand. Like, you're a kid, you want to hold your dad's hand.
Yeah.
And he says, don't do that.
Right.
Don't hold my hand, or he pulls his hand away. Maybe for you felt this sense of like rejection, and that maybe shifted your worldview. And we don't think of it that way as a kid, but like, okay, I can't be vulnerable. That is what we would call like a small t trauma, where it shifted something inside you, but it's not, this huge life event that we would consider a big T trauma, which is like, an assault, a death, something like that.
Right. It was just the first indication you had your dad didn't really love you. Yeah. Right. Which is...
I guess my short answer to your question is it depends.
Right.
But I do think a lot of times therapy speak is overused, like calling everyone a narcissist, or calling, I like my throw pillow straight, so I have OCD. That's not what that is.
Right. But I think you've lost on that one.
Yeah.
I think those terms are out there. But when you do look at trauma, when you are talking with your clients who are talking about childhood trauma, you probably have a very open definition of what that is, right? You're not correcting people and be like, well, that wasn't actually traumatic.
I actually do the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes when we're talking about EMDR, for example, and I'm trying to give them a little snippet of what it is, I'm like, think of something that happened in your life that on a scale of 1 to 10 is maybe like a 3.
Okay.
So that I can show them without them being too distressed. And they'll say, oh, well, my dad, when I was a kid, he kept telling me he was going to take me to Disneyland. And then the day would come and he just wouldn't show up. And then the next week would come and then he wouldn't show up. And so that was a 3. And I'm like, oh, no. That seems like that was pretty serious. And they will say, well, it wasn't as serious as this, and this other big thing that happened. I'm like, no, that's still trauma.
Just because something is a 3 on the level, because you're grading on the curve, right? They're saying, well, no, this is my 10 level trauma. This was just a 3. And you're like, oh, no, it's all.
Yeah.
It's actually, that was a 10 and an 8.
Maybe it's a 3 to you, but that's still trauma because it formed how you view love. It formed how you view relationships, rejection, all those various things.
Is the approach to kind of just like really get in there and dive into what happened and kind of exist in that and like and really have to like really process why those things happen? I mean, you really just have to address it head on, I'm kind of assuming.
Definitely address it head on, but sometimes there's no why. If we think of, really heinous things that I won't give examples to here, but people can imagine, there's no why to maybe why you experience something really sadistic as a child. There's not going to be a why. The reason is because there's evil in the world and things like that. But it's opening space for healing and for processing and just get all like the ugly feelings that you've kept deep down inside and stored in your body out of your body, out of your consciousness. And then my job as a therapist is to maybe make certain connections. So maybe you said a certain word that you also use to describe your boss. And I can say like, okay, I think a lot of your troubles at work are not necessarily your troubles at work.
Okay.
They are associated with this thing that happened to you in your past. And let's process that. And so sometimes you can then become more whole. And so you're not experiencing so much distress when you are at work.
Hey, I want to do a special shout out for the Bearded Brotherhood. They've been an early supporter of this show. We love and appreciate their support so much. So show them some love back. Go check out their stuff. It's beardedbrotherhood.co. They have all amazing grooming products, mostly related to beards, but even a guy like me with an unbearded guy like me can use the cologne. other stuff we can use. Fantastic products. Tyler has the most luscious beard in showbiz. Everyone knows that. Everyone wants to go up, touch that beard, smell that beard. I've done it many times. I've never been disappointed once. So give them some love. If you want to go to their website, you can use the code ILYSM15 and you're going to get 15% off your order. You can use it over and over again because once you get the Bearded Brotherhood products, you're going to want to keep ordering them time and time again. beardedbrotherhood.co, code ILYSM15. Thank you, Bearded Brotherhood. You know, one of the most important things you can feel in life is feeling like you have community and feeling like you have support. And that's true for everyone in their day-to-day life. And it's also true for this podcast. We are trying to grow community. We have community and it's in our Patreon. It's patreon.com/ILYSMpod. It's where our viewers can interact. They can interact with us. They can interact with each other. There's some great discussions going on. All of our love bugs in there, they get to spread the love. And that's our program of giving 15% of all revenue taken in by our Patreon to a worthy charity. Until the end of this year, it is Mesa in Ojai, which is an organization that combats homelessness among young people. We did a recent episode with Dan Parzial who talked all about it. We really encourage you to check that episode out and check out our Patreon. Your support means everything to us. The community around this show is what's going to keep it going. And hopefully we can all be there for each other. It's ILYSM pod at patreon.com, patreon.com/ILYSM pod.
Can you tell us a little bit about dark empaths? We have an article here that lists some of the common phrases used by them in relationships.
Well, I like the name of the dark empath. I feel like, you know,
it's very cool. It's very Sith.
But I'm sure it's very sinister actually. So
it is, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's kind of a newer term, maybe like a newer buzzword, and it's empathy when we talk about that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of it. I feel like I have
great.
it. Yeah, I feel like that's what the show is about, kind of. Yeah, it's great.
So it fosters connection, kind of going to what we were talking about before. Yeah. But when it's dark empathy, what that is it's based on intent, right? So if, let's say I'm a dark empath, you were, which I'm not, but let's just say
we're just
for this example,
role play.
And you expressed a couple of vulnerabilities in our conversation so far. So
like I'm a bad parent. Well,
maybe that's a fear, right?
Right.
So a dark empath would then clock that and they would say to themselves like, okay, that's something he is worried about.
Right.
So when you maybe upset me in the future, I can ask you a kind of sinister question that is disguised as empathy. And I can say like, well, how do you think your daughter would feel if she heard you say that? That's dark empathy. And it's used to, it's gaslighting. It's used to incite confusion. And it's, based in manipulation and control.
Are dark empaths conscious of themselves doing that?
A dark empath, yeah. They use your vulnerabilities against you, and it's very much conscious. And it's hard for me to say that, too, because as a therapist, we really believe in, like, rehabilitation and change. And that's not to say, like, a dark empath is doomed forever, but they, through maybe their own set of circumstances, let's give them a little bit of empathy. They've learned that that's the way that they can survive. But I would say it's very much a conscious choice.
We have some common dark empath phrases here. Maybe you can tell us what's actually going on when they say these things. First one being, you're too sensitive. So you're too sensitive is really playing on your reaction to something. So instead of saying, hey, what I said was actually kind of mean, it's just your reaction was too out of control.
Right. It puts it on the other person.
Yeah. And it makes you feel like you're less than. Because if you're too sensitive, then you're not tough. Right. And that's a criticism.
Right. Number two, you're too good for me.
So that's when we see a lot in like romantic relationships. If we have one person who is a dark empath and they don't want to change their behavior, they'll just say, you're too good for me, because then the other person will be like, no, I'm not. And usually a dark empath goes after an empath. So they connect on that empathy.
Ooh, even more sinister.
Yeah. So the empath is like, no, you're even just a moment ago when I was trying to empathize with the dark empath, right? And I'm like, maybe they had something going on. So in a lot of romantic relationships, they'll say that, like, no, this person is just that way because they had a really hypercritical mom.
Right.
And that hypercritical mom made them hypercritical of me. So I'm just going to love them more and be nicer, and then they'll stop being mean.
I've heard that before.
And that doesn't really work.
Yeah. And then, you are my everything.
That's love bombing.
Yeah.
That's
dark empaths love bomb.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because if they were just
bastards.
criticizing all the time, then they wouldn't have relationships. And that's why they've learned to be so calculated.
Do you think am I a dark empath?
Oh, we'll see.
I don't know you well enough.
No, I don't know. Well, because I feel like I could I'm probably susceptible to love bombing. I think. I don't know.
But not all love bombers are dark empaths.
Okay.
Sometimes love bombing is just like we call insecure attachment, where you meet somebody and you have just hard eyes for them. And and you feel in that moment they're everything you ever wanted.
Yes.
And you genuinely feel that way.
Could it maybe be like the imposter syndrome you're talking about too? They feel like they're just not good enough.
Yes, but it's when it's used in that way, it's like it's manipulation to try to get the other person to say they're actually not good enough and lessen their worth, so that they, instead of the person who feels lesser, in this case the dark empath, rising up, because that's what you do in healthy love, right? If you have a person you like and you feel like they're a little more well-spoken than you, then a healthy person would try to become more well-spoken to match them.
Right.
An unhealthy person would be like, let me criticize them on how they're actually not well-spoken so I can bring them down to my level. And that's just rooted in insecurity.
Okay. I'm sorry you feel that way. Number 4.
Yeah, that's a cop-out for sure.
Yeah.
Because instead of saying I messed up and I actually caused this reaction, you're saying, I'm sorry you had too big of a reaction.
Yeah.
Goes along with the you're too sensitive.
Nothing's wrong with me. It's a you problem.
Right. And it's apologizing without actually apologizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a tangent though, something I've learned because I spend far too much time online. They've started to refer to this type of person as Schrodinger's douchebag.
Okay.
Which is where they'll say something fucked up, and then based on the reaction that they get from the person, they'll either pivot to like, I was just joking. You know,
right.
or they'll fully,
Oh yeah, here we are at 5. I was only joking. Oh, classic.
Yeah, that is infuriating to me sometimes, because
a lot of times,
we're here all things comedy. I love comedy. I love laughing.
Yeah.
But not at someone else's expense.
Yes.
That's not funny.
Yeah.
That's malicious.
And I feel like, as like a quote unquote funny guy, I think I've probably done those kind of jokes, and I really try. I've worked hard on not doing those and trying to be less, like if I make fun of anyone, it's usually myself at this point. So.
And that you only know what you know when you know it. So maybe you didn't realize that at the time.
Yeah.
And as you're growing and learning and becoming better,
I'm not,
you're like,
I'm not
I don't want to hurt
trying
that person's feelings.
hurt people's feelings. But sometimes sometimes you're like, oh, the joke was just too good. I had, it was worth it. It was because it was just that funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. 6. Oh, you said gaslighting. So this is it. That's not how it happened.
Yeah, for sure gaslighting, but it also is so frustrating because, if I say this is a wood table and you tell me, no, it's not.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it is.
Right.
Like, it is a wood table. And you're like, actually, it's just not. Then I start to think, well, this is his studio. Maybe it's not a wood table.
Right.
And that's what, and also memory is so hard because it happens differently every time.
Right.
Do you know what you ate for breakfast today? Probably.
Maybe. Yeah.
Do you know what you ate for breakfast last Monday?
Right.
Probably not. Maybe.
Not.
But if I asked you your birthday, your last birthday, do you know what you had for breakfast? Then maybe you would say yes. So memory is really hard, and sometimes we start to doubt our own memory, and they play on that.
Right. I need your help. That doesn't actually. That sounds. That sounds like a good thing. Like to admit that you need help. I mean, that's isn't that one of the first steps?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Tyler because I'm like, this is where he jumps in with talking about the program.
Yeah, some of these, not all of them, but a lot of these things are disguised as helpful, good, vulnerable qualities, and that's why it's a dark empath and not a sociopath, right? Because they'll do something to upset you, maybe gaslight you, frustrate you in some way, and then without acknowledging the problem or acknowledging what they did, they'll say, actually, I need your help with this thing, and then make them vulnerable. So then the empath person that they're talking to will come in and try to save the day. And they're like, they're not that bad. They actually need my help in this situation.
Right. It's manipulate. Right. Mm-hmm. have someone feel needed. Yeah. Oh, how would you survive without me? The big number 8 here, the last one.
It's all manipulation. So there's another one.
Right.
It's manipulating, and it's diminishing the other person's worth. And this is the last number 8 for a reason, because it is a series of chipping away. A relationship with a dark empath is a series of chipping away at your confidence. And maybe the first time you say something sinister, someone says something sinister to you, it doesn't do anything. But over time, that chips and chips and chips away at you, and then you don't value yourself. And so it's so much gaslighting that you start to think like, wait, do I need you to tell me what this table is made of? Maybe I actually don't know. Maybe I'm so ignorant that I thought this was wood and it's actually plastic.
Right. If you're working with a client and you feel like they are in a relationship with a dark empath, you can't really say that to them, or can you? I mean, how do you navigate this if you are, I guess it's a bigger question, or when you're working with a client and you see they're in an unhealthy relationship, I mean, what can you do? What can you do about it?
So I treat all of my clients differently based off of like my experience in learning them, right? And so sometimes I'll, say to them, that's not okay. What do you mean he or she said this? And sometimes I'm just super direct and it's like, that's not okay. That's emotional manipulation. A lot of times in a situation like this, somebody is so chipped away at and their value is so diminished because of this emotional manipulation that I will, what I've done before is I'll read them the criteria for emotional abuse or financial abuse, for example. And I'll say, I want to read something to you. And I'll say, tell me how many of these you're experiencing. And that way it's not coming from me. It's coming from this specific website or this specific criteria.
Right.
And that will usually help them realize like, okay, this situation that I'm in.
Right.
And that's, first just the discovery. And then it's figuring out, okay, you've acknowledged that you're in an unhealthy relationship. Now what are the next steps?
That's a good trick, because then they can also say, oh, no, I don't see any of these. And so, you leave yourself an out, right? If they don't disagree with you, because you can't I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't be a therapist because I'd just be like, girlfriend, wake up.
Yeah. One of the hardest parts to therapy is knowing your client's going to walk into a wall and you can't pull them away from the wall. You just have to watch them walk into the wall.
Right.
And that's really challenging.
But then what happens if you have a dark empath as a client?
Interesting question, because that would be like kind of a dark empath's MO, right? That they have a therapist.
Right.
And they can manipulate their therapist.
Oh.
And
you're enabling dark empaths. It sounds like to me.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I had a client said something kind of messed up. Not necessarily to me, but something about what they did recently. And they said, yeah, don't do that at a casino because there's cameras. And I said, well, how about just don't do that at all? Like I will very much call my clients out, or, I've had clients like, hey, I'm kind of starting to have a wandering eye. And I'll say, okay, well, let's go through the pros and cons of carrying out this thing that you're talking about.
Right.
And I'll tell them, like, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like, I can't necessarily tell you to not do what you're thinking about doing.
Right.
And even if I did, who's to say you'll listen?
Right.
But it's just not ethical. But I can say that I think that's an awful idea.
But that is ethical to say?
Ethical, yeah. They wouldn't teach you that in grad school, but yeah.
Okay.
When I do consultations with clients, I I have a little spiel, but that's one of the things I say. I'm very direct. And so I deal a lot with self-sabotaging. Like my clients experience that.
Oh, I think I do that.
Let's just go with that wandering eye example. And I'll say, okay, you've worked so hard to get your relationship to a really healthy place. And now it sounds like you're about to take the next step. But instead of doing that, you're starting to have a wandering eye. Like, I think you're self-sabotaging. Pretty sure that's what's going on here.
Oh,
and
wow.
9 times out of 10, I will get like, oh, you're right.
Okay, why do we self-sabotage? Why do I do it? How can you help me? And you have 5 minutes.
Okay, well, what are you self-sabotaging about?
Well, I think I self-sabotage about, and I've talked about it a bit, about like I think procrastinate on some simple things and they become bigger problems, or I self-sabotage. I just like, I ignore like certain money things, or I ignore like something that needs tending in a friendship, or, you know, I'll ignore some of these things that are problems that are not giant problems, but then like I just don't want to deal with them, and they don't always turn into enormous problems, but I feel like it sabotages me from being who I want to be and how I want to move through the world.
So it sounds more so like avoidant, sure.
Right, yeah. But isn't that a form of self-sabotage in a way?
It can be. It's I guess self-sabotage is more tied to like the problem. So let's say you have a new script that you've written and you met with somebody and they said, send it to me, and you didn't send it because you don't think it's going to be that good. Maybe you're avoiding that.
Right.
That's self-sabotage, but also humans, we don't like to do hard things.
Oh,
so we avoid.
I hate it. Yeah.
I think a lot of times life is a choice between what do you want and what do you want more. Mm-hmm. So what do you want? Do you want this friendship to be mended, or do you want the comfort of not having to have that uncomfortable conversation?
Either one is okay.
But it's what do you want more? And sometimes it's I don't want to have that conversation. I'm avoiding it. And my comfort in this moment is more important to me. And that's okay if that's okay with you. You know, you're the one who has to sit with that decision at the end of the day.
Right.
But as if I was your therapist and you came in and that was a really distressing issue, then I would find a gentle way to encourage you to maybe repair the relationship, because it sounds like that's actually what you want more, but you're afraid.
Yeah, no, I do want to like do all the nagging things that I need to do. I would rather I think I would rather do them, but maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I want to feel like, as Tyler would say, I want to feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah, and that's a form of self-sabotage, I would say. Because you are afraid that if you said you weren't a piece of shit, that you couldn't live up to that.
I think it is time for for Reed Gets Real. Do we have a theme music for this or anything?
Dun, dun,
yeah. Well, look, we did this once before. You know, after every show, the guest leaves and I was, oh, Reed, that was a great show. You know, it was good. And I was like, oh yeah, thanks. That was good. And then I looked at Ellie, one of our producers, and I was like, I feel like I didn't get very real in the real side. I got to get realer. And then she just, without missing a beat, goes, yeah, you do. And what happened after that too, and I think this is part of me getting real, is the next week when I had therapy, or actually it was the next day, I had the therapy the next day, and I noticed that I had problems getting real with my therapist. It's like, you know, every session we can say, hey, how's it going? You know, what's going on? And I'm like, well, you know, nothing much, you know, I don't know.
Been a good week.
Just working.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I had my daughter. And I realized that I end up in therapy wanting to talk about like a lot of the logistics that are going on in my life, or just like I'll recap events. I was like, I did the podcast this week and it was the first time without Tyler. And it was like, well, how did that make you feel, Reed? Oh, I felt pretty good, but I'm not like, I'm not getting deep into it. There is something down there, but I don't know how to access it. And I want to be able to access it. And maybe it's like, I got to start doing the mushrooms and all the stuff that everyone is saying I do. But I wonder if that inability to feel like I'm getting real, I wonder if that also like is the thing that has brought me to where I am now, where my marriage didn't work out. We went to therapy with that, but did I really ever get down into what I really needed to get into? Did I actually do the work? Because I feel like if you ask me, I did all the work. We went to therapy. I did this. I did that. Nothing I could do was ever enough. Da 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 da. And it's like, well, did I really? I don't know. And how do I know? And I mean, how do I get to a point where I can really get in touch with deep down and be honest about it, not only with the audience here or with my therapist, but just with myself. Have
you ever tried meditating?
Not really. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my tip is to get into your body. So meditating is something you can do on your own. You can do it every day. And you can do it there's lots of different ways. You can do a guided meditation. There's apps like Headspace. It's really nice. Or you can sit and do what we call a body scan. So what that entails is basically scanning from head to toe your body and just feeling, where do I feel tightness? Where do I feel tension? Where do I feel something? So would you be open to kind of going into your body right now and telling me maybe somewhere you feel...
Right now?
If you're comfortable.
Oh,
maybe
well,
just something you feel in your body that
Ellie,
you notice.
I'm going to do this because I'm getting real.
Maybe just something you feel if you scan from your head down to your...
So I just scan. So I got to close my eyes, right?
Okay, so if you close your eyes and kind of just get comfortable. Okay.
With a microphone in a chair.
And lighting.
With a shirt that's a little too tight. Yes, I'll be very comfortable, yeah.
Sorry, I put you on the spot here.
No. I asked you to.
And just try to relax, and you can close your eyes or just get kind of a soft focus. And if you scan from the top of your head down to your neck, shoulders, upper back, maybe into your chest, down to your hips, feel yourself sitting in the chair, your feet on the ground. Is there anywhere that you feel maybe some like tightness, tension, distress, anything that kind of sticks out to you in your body?
My shoulders definitely feel heavy.
Okay.
I think I'm like perpetually tight there in where you would get a massage.
Yeah, like
where
your
I never
traps.
get massages. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like my shirt is all riding up weird, so I feel like tension around like my belly. But that's something I always feel tension around because it's like the source of my, appearance shame and it's the thing that I've always had more of than I wanted. Yeah. And so that I'm perpetually feeling like a fat guy and like, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot there with the body image stuff. But as a therapist, in my practice, I usually think the first thing you say, where is the most...
Well, you started at the top, and so then I was
true.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
No, it's okay, but I let you get down to my knees or something, and then I went back to my shoulders.
Okay, so, but if you focus on that heaviness in your shoulders... If you could imagine it, what would it look like? Would it have a shape? Would it have a color? Would it be a symbol? Would a symbol represent it?
It just feels like a steak, like a hunk of steak. I don't know. It just feels like, that doesn't seem as tight as it feels, but it just, I don't know. I feel like there's just like this meat there that I want to like massage. I want to tenderize.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what it's like a steak that I want to take a tenderizing hammer to. It's a tough cut of meat.
Hard to get through.
That I want to tenderize it and then.
Is there something in your life that you feel like you want to tenderize that is so difficult that you really want to get through?
In a recent episode, my confession was that I'm not sure I'm a good person. I think I have a lot of good qualities, and I understand it's not a binary choice. We're not all one thing. But I felt very like self-centered. I want at the end of every week or whatever, I want to feel like, oh, I was a good person this week. I did things that weren't just for myself, and it's okay to do things for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to part of feeling about that I'm failing at some of these tasks that I need to do, that I'm not, living up to my business partner or my ex or my daughter or even myself and how I want to be. And like, and then that makes you feel like, like I don't want to feel like a piece of shit at the end of the week, either for two reasons. One, because I didn't help people, and two, because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I didn't do what I told myself I was going to do.
That's a big one, right? So you want to not negotiate with yourself. And I guess that starts with a commitment, right? If you say that you are going to do 5 tasks for your business or for your daughter or for whatever it is that like, are those accomplishable, right? Is the right question to ask yourself. And then do you have like the time and space and all that stuff to do it? And then if so, not negotiating with yourself and being really strict, and you have to live with your decisions at the end of the day, no matter who you're going to sleep next to. If there's someone there, you have to go to sleep with the thoughts inside your head and the feelings in your heart. So if you feel like a piece of shit, you're the one who suffers from that. And that's not a good place to live. Like when your mind and your heart are a war zone, that is so that itself is traumatizing.
Right. And that causes my shoulders to be tight.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we did a really quick version of that, but I would,
on camera.
I would encourage, right, in front of, your studio here, I would encourage you to do something like that on your own, and you can just go scan your body. And if you're having trouble just thinking of what it is, go into your body and say, what do I feel right now? Do I feel uncomfortable? Do I feel light? Do I feel heavy? Do I feel this needing to tenderize meat on my shoulders? What is it? And then going a step further and asking yourself, like, okay, what does that maybe represent? What is that connected to? Because you have the information inside of you. What we do as therapists is help you access it. But we're not, sometimes, of course, sometimes we give you tips and things like that. We give you insight with our background, but you're the expert on you. You have all this stuff inside of you.
That's the one thing I don't want to be an expert on is me. Scan my body. Okay, that feels always uncomfortable to me.
Yeah.
Like to be one with, how I feel physically. It doesn't,
So if it's uncomfortable, I would say that's even more of a reason why you need to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it plays into too, another of the things I'm always, saying I'm going to do is I'm going to, get in better shape. I'm going to start exercising more and, And then when you don't, then you feel that in your body, right? I feel that I haven't, accomplished those tasks that I want to accomplish.
Right. Another thing that would be helpful for this, if you feel like you're having trouble getting deep, is journaling. And stream of consciousness, just like what's in my mind right now, and commit to a certain frequency, a certain length, like 1 page a day or 10 pages a week, whatever it is, and just write. Even if you have nothing to write about, finish that quota. And what you'll find is you're accessing things that are deeper. Because sometimes you're going to be like, oh, I filmed the podcast today and it was so great, or my drive was so annoying, and you have stuff in the top of your mind. But if you're filling that quota of a page a day, you're going to run out of those, what we call coffee talk things, and you're going to be forced to go deeper. But you have to hold yourself accountable to actually do those things, right? Those exercises.
Right. Like, I feel like I'm the type of person who needs someone I need to hire you to come to my house to make me do that, which is unreasonable, and I don't have that kind of money, but but it's the kind of thing that I'd be like, my spouse or whatever will make me accountable to that. But no, you can't. I don't want to put that on them either. So.
Because then you're also doing it for them potentially. Are you doing it for you? And something I like to say in therapy is it's important to work on yourself, but like you said, but that work we do on ourselves is our gift to everyone else. So when you do everything you said you were going to do, even if it's not for your daughter, just stuff you said you were going to do. I'm going to journal and exercise and whatever. Yeah. And you are happier. You feel more accomplished. And then when you do spend time with your daughter, you're a better version of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a healthier version that's going to live longer, because I'm not, I'm not getting dementia because I was lonely, or, whatever.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, Amber, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We really appreciate it. We also want to say thank you to all our Patreon subscribers, our love bugs, Jonathan Newman especially, and our top tier love bug. And remember, if you are in our Patreon and or you want to join, we now have the Spread the Love program, where 15% of all the revenue we get from Patreon is going to go to a charity. Until the end of the year, it's Mesa, who, if you haven't seen that episode, it was, I think, a couple episodes ago. It was Dan Parzial was on. Amazing episode. Please check that out. Please check out Mesa. We're so happy to be supporting them with our Patreon. And thank you, of course, to Studio 1042, right?
That's
I got it right.
And Amber, where can we find you?
So my practice is A Road Through Therapy Group. You can find us at aroadthrough.com. Follow on socials at A Road Through.
And thank you to everyone watching this and listening. We appreciate you. We love you so much.